Hey guys, today we're going to talk about properties of parallel lines. If you remember last lesson, we learned about all these special angle pairs and their relationships that we got when we cut parallel lines with the transversal. So today we're going to learn, actually today we're learning the relationships in those angle pairs. So either write your essential question now or take your notes and go back at the end and write your essential question when you write your summary. All right, so let's look at the corresponding angles postulate. We learned what corresponding angles are. Now what we are going to learn is that if I have parallel lines cut by a transversal, then the pairs of corresponding angles will always be congruent. So angles 1 and 2 there in the picture are congruent, and I will probably start using the congruent symbol in the interest of time in these notes. All right, all sets of corresponding angles, if the lines are parallel cut by a transversal, are congruent. All right, how about the alternate interior angles theorem? Well, that says if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of alternate interior angles are congruent. So we know that corresponding angles are congruent, alternate interior angles are congruent. What do you think about consecutive interior angles? So look, angles 5 and 6 here. You think those are going to be congruent? I don't think so. I can just tell from looking at my picture that angle 6 here is an acute angle and angle 5 here is an obtuse angle. So the relationship between the consecutive interior angles is that they are supplementary. Supplementary, which of course, as you remember, means the sum of their measures is 180 degrees. All right. How about alternate exterior angles? Well, as you would probably expect, alternate interior angles, when the lines are parallel, are congruent. So remember this, you've got 3 of the sets that are congruent. You've got your corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles are congruent, and the one set, the consecutive or same side interior angles, are supplementary. All right, so let's do some practice. What is the value of y in this picture? How are we going to do this problem? Well, let me think about this for a second. Let's think about it this way. What do I know about this angle here and this angle right here? These two angles. If I looky here, I've got parallel lines. So what kind of angles are those two angles that I have highlighted there? They're same side interior angles, right? So what do I know? I know that they're supplementary. So I know that 80 plus 40 plus y has to be 180 degrees, right? Supplementary angles. So 120 plus y is 180. So that tells me that y has to be 60, 180 minus 20. Now, do I need to put my degrees on the 60? I don't need to, do I? Because if you look, the y already has the degree symbol on it. I can't get my little cursor thing out of the way there, but it's telling me that is y degrees, so I don't have to put the degrees on the 60. All right, so let me ask you this. If angle y there measures 60 degrees, what does this angle right here measure? Well, it would have to be 40 degrees, right? Because we know that the sum of the measures of a triangle is 180 degrees, and if one is 80 and one is 60, that's 140. So 180 minus 140 would give me 40 degrees for that angle. Now, does that make sense? Of course it does, because look at this. What if I extend these parallel lines? And here's my transversal. This is an alternate interior angle right here. And this is an alternate interior angle, and since that one's 40, then of course that one would have to be 42. So we know we got the right answer there with y being 60 degrees. All right, how about our next example? Given that the measure of angle 1 is 118 degrees, going to fill that in there. Find the measures of each angle. Tell which postulate or theorem you used. Okay, well, let's look. Angle 1, that's going to be an exterior angle. So let's take angle 4 with angle 1. We know that's the alternate exterior angle that goes with the pair. So I know the measure of angle 4 is 118 degrees. We'll come back and get the theorem or postulate in just a minute. Well, let's just do it now. What is that? That's the alternate exterior angles theorem, right? There's only one of those we learned that's a postulate, and that was the very first one, the corresponding angles postulate. All right, so how about the measure of angle 3? We could use that related to the measure of angle 1, right? Because the angle 3 and angle 1 are what kind of angles? Corresponding angles. So we know that the measure of angle 3 is also 118 degrees. That's the corresponding angles postulate. Okay, so if we know 3 is 118, then we can use the consecutive interior angles theorem to say that the measure of angle 2 is, let's see, 2 and 3 are supplementary, right, by the consecutive interior angles theorem. So 180 minus 118, I think, is going to be 62 degrees. So that's the consecutive interior angles theorem. And so if that's 62 degrees, then 2 and 5, what kind of angles are they? They're alternate interior angles. So I know the measure of angle 5, alternate interior angles are congruent, so the measure of angle 5 is also 62 degrees. Alternate interior angles theorem. And of course you could have used, let's see, when I found the measure of angle 3 is 118, I could have said, okay, well the measure of angle 4 is also 118 because those are vertical angles. But we were really trying to practice with our new theorems and our postulate, so that's why I went about it in that way. All right, we got one more example here. Good place for you to pause and try to work these by yourself, and then come back and check to see what the answer is. Okay, so what I did here in this first example is I know that angle 1 and this angle right here are supplementary, so I wrote that equation. How do I know they're supplementary? Well, because they're a linear pair, right? They're a linear pair, those two. So I know that the sum of them is 180 degrees, so I wrote that equation, and then I said, oh, but wait a minute, the measure of angle 1 is 39. Why? Because angle 1 is congruent to this angle right here because they're alternate interior angles. So then I substituted 39 in right here, and I kind of combined steps and then isolated my 7x, and I subtracted the 1 that was here, and I subtracted the 39, so they came to the other side. That gave me 7x equals 140, and then of course 7 into 140 goes 20, so x is 20. This example here, number 2, much easier. How do I know that 3x equals 90? Well, because this angle and this angle, which is a right angle, so its measure is 90 degrees, those are corresponding angles, right? So by the corresponding angles postulate, those two angles are congruent. Therefore, their measures are equal. So 3x equals 90 degrees. Therefore, x is going to be 30. And that's my answer. And that's our lesson for today. So please write yourself a summary. Go back and write your essential question. And we'll see you next time.